It is the Derf, and today I have got a solar build for you that I think you'll really enjoy. It is the surge of the week, but theoretically going forward, you can use this anytime that solar creeps into your mindset and you want to bust out a build that really does help you light the world on fire. So let's get on into it. First and foremost, I got, obviously the Solar Super. Abilities don't really matter, but Strand is also a surge this week. So if you are a fan of Strand, maybe try to equip these abilities. Arcane Needle and Threadling Grenade. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know I'm not very accurate when it comes to lobbing a grenade very far out. So I like to let the Threadling Grenades do the work for me. For aspects, it's just too hard for me to put down Lightning Surge. I'm sorry. I know it's not the Surge of the week. I know I could be running the Hellion, or I could be running Weaver's Call to take advantage of the damage buffs, but I really like being amplified, and when you blink forward and call down that Lightning Strike, and you get amplified for it, and you also see a group of enemies just basically get electrocuted to death, it's a pretty good feeling, and you can run back to wherever you need to go next to get to more enemies. Feed the Void. Obviously, if you're not using it, I recommend it for virtually every build. There's only a couple of them that I've come across where I've equipped anything else in this second slot. Get your Devour going with any ability kill. That includes using your Lightning Strike. But those are the two aspects I think really pair well with this. And I think for you, you're really going to enjoy getting a boost to your mobility once you're amplified. And you can also take advantage of some of the, at least one artifact perk moving forward. For fragments, I'm not going to read all of them, the finer print and all that. But essentially what you want the Facet of Awakening because you want... You want the elemental pickup. If you're lacking in resilience, it also gives you a bump to resilience. And the fire sprite will give you grenade energy, which means you can spam more grenades. Facet of purpose. Obviously, I want my orb of power to give me a bump in one element or another. In this case, it's going to be restoration. Facet of honor. I get a little bit of a bump to strength, and because I'm going to be producing a lot of elemental pickups, I'm going to be getting my grenade ability back that much faster. Facet of sacrifice. When you have an arc, solar, or void buff, you get more transcendent. So, and I get a bump to discipline. That's going to be key here because you're going to be spamming light and dark abilities. And then lastly, facet of balance. Rapidly defeat targets with light damage, grants melee energy. Now that is going to be huge because you are going to see a lot of fire on the screen, which means that's going to give you a bump to your Arcane Needle, which also means that you're going to be able to spam that darkness damage and get your grenade energy as well. For stat distribution, as usual, I've overshot resilience. Resilience and discipline are the two important stats in this. You are going to be surrounded by combatants a lot, especially in the onslaught modes. Those two are going to be what you want to max out. I do have 9 in intellect, but you could easily flip intellect and strength, and this would still be a killer build, and I'll get into why. As far as the armor goes, make sure you got your siphons attuned to what you're going to be using to kill most. I've also got a heavy ammo finder on here as well, because once I get to the heavier enemies, my goal is to vaporize them as fast as possible. For the gauntlets, I've got a little bit of a bump to discipline. That was just to get me into the T9. But the two keys here, firepower and heavy-handed. And you always want to try to equip your main add clear weapon. In this case, it is solar for me. And I've got a solar loader modification. So that's going to help you reload and get back into the fight quicker. Mantle of Battle Harmony. If you've seen some videos before that I've done, you know that I do like this chess piece a lot. You can use it if you prefer to use the class item. I'll get to what you can swap it out with. But the key takeaway point here, since you're going to be spamming solar and using heavy solar, final blows with weapons matching your equipped super, you get the bonus damage when it matches your equipped super. So if you have a super full and you go into a boss battle, you can spam a couple of shots off, then throw your super down for an extra bump to your overall instant hit damage. And it's always nice, have your resistance match whatever your threat is, and obviously make sure if you've got a solar heavy to put on that solar reserve mod. For the leg armor, I'm back at it. I'm running double absolution. I took my bump in discipline, and again, whatever your heavy is, try to match it with the scavenger mod. For the warlock bond, it's not conventional, but I do have double reaper. I want that orb of power after I use my class ability to be a little bit more powerful. Now, I know that seems like overkill. However, there's nothing really in here that I'm going to really need to take anything from. Any of these other mods is not, they're not going to give me more. But I guess if you wanted to switch it out with something, you could switch it out with distribution. You could put on time dilation, but with the amount of orbs you're going to produce for this class or for this build, you're not really going to be hurting for extra time. You're going to constantly be getting it refreshed. If you did want to swap it out with something else, you probably could do like empowered finish, or you could do it with powerful attraction, or like I said, distribution, depending on your play style. But I'm not going to be spamming my class ability a lot, so the few times that I do, I want to get the most out of it as possible. If I was running the Hellion or Weaver's Call, I would probably be spamming it more, which means I would get more orbs of power, so I wouldn't be concerned that the few times that I do spam it or use it, I get as powerful of an orb of power as possible. So it doesn't really matter to me. You're going to get that orb of power, and you're going to be getting your font of restoration because my recovery is at a T2. You're going to be getting a bump to your recovery with all the orbs you're spawning anyways. As far as the weapons go, there's a few different ways that you can do this. If you saw my last week's video where I was not using a shotgun and I had some other things going on with Void, I've changed it up a little bit for this. In the kinetic slot, I've got Super Cluster. It's got the anti-barrier perk on it. For this specifically, since I'm really only using this for champs, the only way to build this is Reconstruction and Vorpal Weapon. Get your backup mag on there. You get 7 rounds in the mag. Recoil direction doesn't matter. Put max range on, because if you aren't right up close and personal, you can still hit your target. Your main ad clear weapon, I always recommend the BXR Battler. If you haven't used this weapon in a while, I just ran a couple of missions with this thing, and it feels just as good as the day that I got it. I prefer to max out stability. You can max out whichever one you like. I think the handling is sufficient at a T6. Reload speed, it is at 65, but remember we got that harmonic reloader on, so you're going to have an increase to your reload speed specifically from your armor mods. So the reload speed, masterwork really isn't necessary here, and you don't need 100 recoil here either. So max out that stability and you're going to be shooting laser beams from across the map. All right, my personal favorite now of this build, Dragon's Breath. Now, obviously Dragon's Breath is still a relatively new-ish weapon. If you weren't part of the crew that had Dragon's Breath initially, Dragon's Breath was brand new to you when it came out not that long ago. This is going to be, if you don't have the catalyst, first go get the catalyst. It's 100% worth it. But Dragon's Breath in a mode like Onslaught, plus the surge being solar, at least for this week. Tomorrow or next week, it probably is going to change. Solar won't be the bee's knees. But when you get into that cluster and you throw a Dragon's Breath down, you basically light the floor on fire, and anything that steps in that fire gets lit on fire and explodes. So if you haven't picked up Dragon's Breath in a while, I definitely recommend giving this one a go. I'm going to quickly go through the artifact, and then I'm going to go back and kind of fine tune and say, if you don't like Dragon's Breath, what else you could use as well. But Dragon's Breath really did me a solid. And I'm going to do some gameplay after this and put it at the end of the video so you can see in a boss room or when it gets insanely mowed down by ads, how this thing can really help you get out of a jam. And it really does give amazing tick damage. For the artifact, it's not a lot. There's basically no love for solar this season. It's nothing but stasis. You have a couple of arc things in here, and you have a couple of void things in here. So you can see how I've got it set up. Obviously, I've got 10 out of 12, so I'm not quite there yet. I just haven't been playing as much as I'd like. But I alter between these 4 types of weapons, so it makes more sense. I don't know why they still haven't figured out to pair your artifact mods with your loadout when you save it. Hopefully that'll come in a future update, but for now, anytime that you change anything in your loadout, make sure your artifact reflects what you're running. So I alternate between anti-barrier scout rifle, and now I've got anti-barrier shotgun. I do use occasionally overload submachine gun, and I'm always rocking a pulse rifle, especially in this season. It's just the way to do it. So things you can take advantage of if you're running solar. Rapid weapon final blows grant you a bonus to mobility. Doesn't matter what element that is. Deal increase to damage to scorn. Obviously, doesn't matter what weapon that is. Total carnage. After finishing a powerful combatant, gain temporary damage resistance. I don't do a lot of finishers. I probably do 5, on an average Vanguard run, if that. But it's a nice little bump, and if you are trying to complete a bounty that requires you to do a finisher, this is a good perk to have on, just in case you happen to be performing a finisher and you're surrounded at the same time. To go along with that, debilitating wave. Finishers emit a damaging wave that matches the element of your current equipped super. So you're running a solar super. That means it's going to be a solar, elemental wave. The only perk on here that really is kind of a toss-up, in my opinion, I've got Hail the Storm on here. Now, I'm basing this on what the language says. Shattering a stasis crystal releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. This does not specify to me that it has to be any specific weapon. So a lot of people are stasis heavy this season, at least so far. I mean, it's only week 2, but banking on the fact that if you are matchmaking, you're probably going to run into someone that is running stasis, and they're not going to be able to shatter every crystal out there. So on the offhand chance that you yourself are face to face with a stasis crystal and you destroy it, you're going to cause that shattering effect that damages and slows targets. So it's not a guarantee, but if it's there, it's a nice little quality of life, let's just call it, benefit for you as the one who shoots the crystal. Last but not least, I've got trace evidence. Rapid precision hits or rapid final blows on targets affected by jolt or blind will create ionic traces. Now, once you collect one of those, obviously you're going to be amplified. So that's going to pair well with our aspect, the lightning surge. Essentially where this is going to come into play, you won't really see it much in like earlier or low levels of an onslaught, or you probably won't see it much in a regular Vanguard run where you're going to be able to take care of this. to its full advantage. However, once you get into later levels of like an onslaught, which is mainly what I've built this for, or a nightfall that you want to have a jolt applied to enemies, you're going to run into tankier enemies. If you are out of ammo, if you are unable to quickly mow down that champ or whatever, or maybe it's not a champ at all, it's just a very tanky yellow bar, you can activate your charge melee when you're sliding. You can jolt the target, and you can take advantage of the amplification you're going to get from that, as well as the stunning effect on that champ, especially if you don't have an alternative to stunning or slowing it down. So that's just a little tidbit. Are you going to be taking advantage of this for what it is in just everyday roaming around the Pale Heart? Probably not. But that's not what this is for. This is for a specific situation. It is also fun to still get amplified, even if you are, running a solar class. And it's still a powerful attack, that lightning surge. And the Jolt or Blind is absolutely going to benefit you because it does work every single time. So that's how I've got the artifact modded for this. Again, I know there's not a lot of solar love, hardly any. So just equip the weapons you're going to equip, make sure those match up, and take advantage of these little sprinkled in perks that don't really necessarily apply to any one class as much as like the top row is pretty much all stasis. Now, if you're looking at this weapons loadout and let's just say, you don't like the setup, well, you can kind of change this up however you feel. So if you don't like Dragon's Breath, or if you're still working on the catalyst, first off, go find a good farming spot and get the catalyst done. Just do it. It doesn't take that long. But if you didn't want to run your exotic and your heavy slot, you could easily swap this out for an Apex Predator. Apex, I love Apex. I pretty much only ever use it on bosses. So 1,700 bosses, I think that's kind of a lot, but it is for me anyways. But Reconstruction and Bipod, you get 4 rounds to the magazine on a fully loaded mag. It puts out a lot of damage when you're putting out 4 in a row. And with the buff to solar in the various activities you could have this in, that would free up your exotic spot. And you can still get some good area of effect damage as well as, take advantage of, the splash damage as well if you need to, or, just chunk damage off of a boss. I prefer chunk damage as opposed to laying lead with a machine gun. But if you really didn't want to run a launcher, hopefully you've got a good Pro Memoria. Reconstruction Target Lock gives you 164 rounds of constant fire. So it's going to take you a while to get through that. And if you run an Onslaught, there is no damage phases. It's just one big damage phase. So that could help you out as well. You just won't get the buff to the damage from your exotic armor. So just keep that in mind. You'll also want to make sure you swap out your Scavenger, and you'll want to swap out your ammo reserves for Strand specific so that you can take advantage of that. But Strand and Solar, they're virtually interchangeable as far as the extra damage buff. So run whatever it is that you're most comfortable. But I'm telling you, once you see the video at the end, you're gonna see what Dragon's Breath does in this boss room, and you're gonna want to do that everywhere because it's freaking awesome. If you don't like the BXR Battler, or you don't like being scoped in so you don't see around yourself, you have enough in your build, if you're running this, that you can easily put on an auto rifle. Now, I prefer Amit, Ambitious Assassin, and Incandescent. It's basically explosion after explosion. If you prefer to get your super back even faster, you can go with No Hesitation. Now, No Hesitation, obviously, the projectiles move slower than the bullets that are going to be coming out of these two weapons. But if you're comfortable with it, maybe you're not trying to kill as much as you possibly can all in one go. Maybe you're taking your time, or you're off, kind of doing your own thing, but you want that Dealer's Choice perk to go with Mantle of Battle Harmony, which it 100% does, by the way. Dealer's Choice and Mantle of Battle Harmony, the intrinsic, they do stack. So just take that for what it is. You get your super back quicker, which means you get your bonus to solar damage back quicker. So these are 3 options. You could probably also run Sunshot, but I don't really think it's necessary to run an exotic in this slot, I guess, unless you really have a build that you're just in love with. This is going to cover all the, the artifact mods with the pulse rifle as well as the shotgun. But if you didn't want to run a shotgun, you absolutely could run a scout rifle. There's a number of scout rifles out there. Fang, I just crafted this one the other day. I barely use it at all, which is why I got 1 weapon killed by it. But I only use this thing to pop the barrier shields. It doesn't really, I'm not using this for ad clear. I'm not changing it up from what I've got as my main ad clear at all. That's literally just for barriers. But if you didn't want to run a shotgun here and you didn't want to run your exotic here, you absolutely could, if you have it, you could put conditional finality in your primary or in your kinetic slot. What that's going to do for you is give you the ability to slow or freeze a champ as well as barrier pierce, and then obviously, if you land all your pellets, you're going to freeze, and then you're going to, scorch the target. Still a very powerful weapon. You can see by the number of enemies I got killed, I don't use it enough. I should, but I just don't. But if you have that, this would also fit, extremely well. And then you might even be able to take advantage of some of the artifact perks. But I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. We're making this mainly just solar, with a little bit of help from our barrier, which is the shotgun, and also have that synergize with the artifact. Now, if you don't have a good roll of Mantle of Battle Harmony, and mine is kind of, it's a 90 roll, but it's so. If you don't have a good roll of Mantle of Battle Harmony, or you just don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can mod your regular legendary armor. Now that there's focusing on the exotic class item, you can focus for Spirit of Harmony, and hopefully you get something good in the other column. Spirit of Apotheosis, I think, is one of the best compliments you can get. It still functions the same. You will get your super back quicker, which is the name of the game if you are running a heavy splash super like the Solar Super for Warlock. But you won't get that extra tick damage once your super is maxed out. So once you get it, you're going to want to use it, even if it's really not appropriate to use it. Or I guess you don't have to, but that's why I left this unequipped and I put Mantle back on, because not every situation in a Vanguard or an Onslaught requires me to use my super, especially when I'm getting my other abilities back very quickly. I'm getting my grenade back every 1 minute, and the melee stacks. So after a few minutes of not using it, I'm going to have 3 to choose from. And if I'm spacing them out with my other abilities and occasionally throwing down my super and relying on my weapon for ad clear, you're going to have constant ability uptime, and you're going to get your super back super quick as well. I did not mean to say super that many times. But anyway, so that is the build. I had a lot of positive feedback on my last build. I'm hoping you guys try this out. Let me know what's working for you. I did have someone bring up the fact I wasn't using a shotgun in my last video. I'm using a shotgun in this video. It actually pairs very well because of the bonus to damage. But this is a really good, very clean way to scorch the entire battlefield and be able to face the unstoppable and the barrier champs that you're going to see if you're running the Onslaught missions. I really like Onslaught, so I've been running them quite a bit. If you haven't been running them a lot, this is an excellent class to do. But you can run this in you can take this, into Vanguard. You could take this in Nightfall. Or you can run campaign missions again, I guess, if you want. It's all going to be good. But just a very clean, easy to use. The shotgun, if you don't like it, like I said, getting up in a champ's face, you can switch it out for a scout rifle. but lots of area effect damage, and that's what makes this class super fun to use. So that's the build. I'm going to post probably 2 or 3 minutes worth of actual gameplay. I'm going to post an entire boss fight because it only took, I'm hoping that I can accomplish one in a minute if I run another onslaught with this build after this video. But either way, I'm going to post a couple of clips from live gameplay using this build. Let me know what you think. If you know someone that's looking for a really good build, or maybe just using the suggested weapons that I've got to kind of complement the artifacts so you can use your solar class, at least for this week while it's the surge of the week. Next week, I'm sure it'll be something else because there's not a lot of reason to put solar as a surge other than to just get people to stop using the artifact. So, but enjoy. Once you get into that sweaty boss room, especially on Onslaught, you fire a couple of rounds of this with the max propellant. I mean, I'm telling you, the whole room lights on fire. So I'll make sure to get a good clip in on that. I'll probably just post a whole boss encounter for Onslaught. So anyways, I appreciate all your feedback. I appreciate you guys engaging with me last week. Let me know what you think of this build. If you could like and subscribe, I'm not begging, just saying it really helps the channel. You guys have really come through and supporting me. I've gotten a lot of kind words from a lot of people, a lot of suggestions from a lot of people, and a lot of help from a lot of people. So I appreciate all the love. I'm going to load into a couple of runs of Onslaught, but don't worry, I'll skip the boring loading screens so you guys can get right to the action. Yeah, I will see you guys next time. I appreciate it. Take care now.
I'm reading multiple enemy contacts. Guardians, light them up.
Success rises upon itself through blade claim